The description that Annie Williams, the widow, gave reporter Marvell Cook for the New Amsterdam News in New York in early July, and his story ran July the 13th, 1940, was a very vivid description that he quoted of what she saw when she saw Elbert's body. And she said she saw 2 holes in his chest that looked to her like bullet holes. And then she says at the end, and I heard, or I was told, that there was a rope around his neck and weighted down with a log. She never said she saw that.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So we don't know how he was killed. We don't know where he was killed.
We don't know the exact place he was killed. It was very likely that he was killed somewhere on or near the Hatchie River.
I imagine that the story of Elbert Williams had a certain level of presence, for lack of a better word, in town over the years. How would you describe?
No.
None?
Nobody talked about it. Am I right about that, John?
Absolutely.
Nobody talked about it.
Wow. Not
Probably
even.
less
It was like
Okay.
an iron curtain of silence descended, and nobody talked about it.
All right, and then what happened?
Me? Elbert Williams was a local man, okay? He was an ordinary guy. His job was to keep the boiler boiling at the Sunshine Laundry. He was the fireman. But when the 5 members of the association attempted to register to vote, and they were driven out of town or fled, Elbert Williams stayed. He had some guts. And not only did he stay, but he was going to carry on that NAACP work, and was overheard planning a meeting. The white man that overheard that gave the tip to the sheriff, or at that time was the policeman here in Brownsville, and that led to his death directly. Patricia Sullivan, who is a professor of history at the University of South Carolina, wrote the definitive history on the NAACP and the making of the Civil Rights Movement, called Lifting the Veil. In it, she said Elbert Williams was the first NAACP member known to have been killed for his civil rights work. When Roy Wilkins delivered his eulogy at Medgar Evers' funeral, he mentioned 4 men who were pioneer fighters, martyrs to the cause of civil rights. And he mentioned Harry Moore in Florida, a couple of others, but the earliest one he mentioned was Elbert Williams. The people who stayed here, black and white, simply did not talk about it. Many black people who were here and experienced that summer of terror left and never came back.
Do you have an estimate?
The only evidence we have is a letter that says 20 to 22 families. So 100 people probably. Families were big back in those days. And that's probably an underestimate, because that's just the number that one fellow who wrote a letter knew about.
So that's reason 2.
Reason 2 was the diaspora. Everybody left. And those people that did talked about it very little, even to their children, because it was so traumatic. The third, well, there may be 4. The third was that there was never a prosecution that could be reported. And then World War II intervened in December of 1941. The case was closed by the Justice Department January the 23rd of 42, and our attention turned to that war.
So
It may. We won't know until we know those things, but it could.
how could it?
If there are bullets in that grave that have not been so deformed or, I'll say, eroded, disintegrated, that they could be subjected to a ballistics test, then I would want to try to get that done.
And that reminds me, you have somebody's gun, don't you?
No, I don't have the gun. I know who does.